name's Tommy Maxwell, and I got to know Mike through a ministry called Coaches Outreach. But that's not where I first met Mike. He knocked me out in a football game in 1967 at Kyle Field. And I kept saying, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Oh, I didn't do that." I said, "Yes, you did. I've seen the game film." And, oh, my goodness. What a man. I guess we kind of bonded through Coaches Outreach. He was always a course of constant encouragement to me. I can look at it today and think about Mike as probably a foundation stone to the ministry as far as it's growing up, because you need, like Pastor said, somebody that's there in your corner, and that was Mike. And but we really bonded over a word, if you can believe that or not. It was the word inerrancy. And you're going, what is that? Well, it comes from the word inerrant, which means that without error. And all good biblical exegesis and interpretation comes from the fact that you believe the Bible is inerrant. And you use the term inerrancy when you refer to, that's my belief. It's what Mike believed at the bottom of his feet. I mean, the very fact that he's in heaven now and Jesus had said, "I go to prepare a place for you," and it's there. He knows what inerrancy is all about and always has. Well, back when I first got to know him a little bit, I was always thinking that Mike would be a great guy to be a lay leader. We use just everyday guys who the material's already done. All they have to do is get in there and love coaches and ask questions, and interact with them. And I always thought Mike would be great for that. And so, sure enough, the time came when here in Glen Rose, the coaches had called and said, "Hey, we'd like to start one of these." And boy, I thought of Mike, and I called him up. I said, "Mike, you think you might like one to do these?" He said, "Yeah, that sounds great. Send me some information." I did. I sent him an application, and on that application, of course, some doctrinal issues, and of course, foundation to all that is believing that the Bible is true. And so I called him up in a few days after that, and I said, "Mike," I said, "did you get it?" And he said, "Yeah, I got it. It looks good." He said, "I've already answered all the questions." He says, I've only got one problem." He says, "I don't believe in inerrancy." Well, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I was just speechless because I thought, now, if there's ever a guy, and of course, he was setting me up. And I couldn't think, I couldn't talk. And then he started giggling. That giggle, and he goes, he said, "I got you, didn't I? I got you, Aggie. I got you." And I mean, and then I didn't appreciate it at first, But then he started laughing so hard, and I just started cracking. I mean, we laughed for 5 minutes. I couldn't get, we'd start to talk again, and we started laughing about it. It was just the funniest thing I think might have ever happened to me in my life, for him to. And so from then on, every time I called him, I started out by calling him. I say, "It's the inerrancy man." He'd giggle and laugh, and I'd laugh. And then he'd call me. He'd say, "Isn't it an inerrancy man? Are you the inerrancy man?" And then he'd giggle, and I'd laugh. And that went on for 15 years, I guess. And so, special man. I got to mention two things. All of us, I think, have pictures in our mind that stick there. It's like it happened yesterday. I mean, we can smell it. We can touch it. It's just so real. And out of about 10 of those things in my mind, Mike has 2 of them. I was in his rehab center, and I'm probably getting a little rehab myself at one point, and I walked over, and I walked by, and I saw Mike over in this, he had one of those whirlpool-like things where he could take people in there and help them, and he's holding this man who had Lou Gehrig's disease in his arms. And he's just sitting there holding this guy, moving him in the water. And, he looked up at me, and I looked at him, and he smiled, and this guy kind of smiled at Mike, and Mike smiled back at him, and we just talked. Such a natural thing. And then a little later, he took that same guy and took him out and put him in a wheelchair and helped him get into his car. Gentle. And I just walked away. I sat in my car for a while. I remember thinking, man, that's amazing. I mean, there's a real man. He really knows how to love unconditionally. The second thing was he had mentioned to me one time, he said, anytime you have some young athletes, or a high school coach or whatever wants to bring his boys out here, feel free to come out to the ranch. We can have some fun out here with them. And so I happened to run into a inner city high school coach in Dallas who was a black coach. And, of course, when I told him about the opportunity, he said, oh, man, I don't think any of these kids have ever done anything like that. And so Mike even made kind of some arrangements to help them bus up and come out to the ranch. And I think totally helped put all the set together, the obstacle course and everything. Of course, they had some crazy stuff out there, and these kids came out there, and I can remember just looking around going, my God, they didn't know. They had never been any place like this. And then he gets them through this obstacle course, and they're trying to get over these big hay bales, and just, there's these kids trying to push these big linemen up, and they get up on top, they fall off on the other side, and they were having a ball. Then the last thing he had them do was run out in the water and get something, and of course that was smart because that cooled them all off because it was a hot day, remember, Tully? And so it was just, these kids were just, they just couldn't believe all this stuff was going on, and I went, Mike's right there, all right, come on. And so, and it's amazing. And then after, he fed them all, and then he is getting toward the end of the day now, and so he puts them all in these flatbed trailers. He got hay on there. He takes them on a hay ride. You were driving one of the trucks, weren't you? And here they are pulling these 75 kids in the back of this thing. They're all sitting on this hay, and I'll never forget, some cattle came running up. Of course, they're coming up for some food. And these black kids, they'd never seen anyone. Hey, what's going on here? What's those cattle going to do? I mean, what are they coming at us like that, And he got so shook up, Mike had to get out of his truck. I don't remember for a minute. He kind of stopped and came back and talked to him and said, hey, these cows love you, man. They're just coming for a little food. Just throw them a little hay, And they go, I don't know, man. But anyway, they start throwing out hay, and, man, I don't know how we got up that hill. We went through some pretty bad ditches, and they got through it and up the mountain, and Mike had a place prepared up there. I don't know how many of you got to go up there with him sometime, but there was a fire burning, and we got off. The sun's starting to go down. Mike had several of us kind of out there to share with him, and several guys got up. Mike was one of them, but like the guy in the water, when Mike got up, he started by saying, I can remember what he said. He says, hey, boys, there's no color in God's eyes. There's no color in God's eyes. And then he started sharing his heart about Jesus, and I can see him there, sun going down. I thought, what a man. What a man. And a coach gave me this. A coach only knew the first 4 lines of this, and I was so impressed with just the first 4 lines, I'd forgotten what they were, so I went and looked them up. And it's more than 4 lines, but I got to read this to you because Mike, I've heard a lot of great sermons, but Mike's life was the best sermon I've ever seen. That's what this is about, by Edgar Guest. It's called Sermons We See. I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one should walk with me than merely point the way. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples always clear. And the best of all the preachers are the men who live their creeds. For to see good put to action, that's what everybody needs. I soon can learn to do it if you'll let me see it done. I can watch your hands in action, but your tongue too fast may run. And the lecture you deliver may be very wise and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. For I might misunderstand you in the high advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding how you act and how you live. When I see a deed of kindness, I'm eager to be kind. When a weaker brother stumbles and a strong man stays behind just to see if he can help him, then the wish grows strong in me to become as big and thoughtful as I know that friend to be. And all travelers can witness that the best of guides today is the one who tells them, is not the one who tells them, but the one who shows the way. One good man teaches many. Men believe what they behold. One deed of kindness noticed is worth 40 that are told. Who stands with men of honor learns to hold his honor dear. For right living speaks a language which to everyone is clear. Though an able speaker charms me with his eloquence, I say, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. Jan, that was Mike. Wasn't he? Best sermon I've ever seen. And I don't know if I should say this, but Mike would not lend this without a challenge. And he would say, I can see him. This comes out. He says, he'd say, look, just ask God every day to use you. And he will. He will. Just sit back and watch him use you. That's Mike.